for ADA upgrades on the building. We're going to have to come up with at least another 500, if not $1 million more, to finish the rest of the building. We have this meeting tonight because since it's going before the legislature, we have to do an environmental review. For the most part, we're exempt because nothing is going to be done to the exterior of the building. Environmental reviews typically affect wetlands, endangered species, or we're going to be releasing some toxic chemical into the air, and none of that is going to happen. But we do still have to have this meeting in order to qualify for the grant.
What about the elevators, Stacy? Is there going to be access from outside, or do you have to use that building to access it?
You will have to come into the building. It was in 2018 we had that feasibility study done. There are pictures and more information in the book in the middle there than what I included in the council packet. But the elevator will sit, it'll be where the city court clerk sits. There'll be a ramp coming in, actually in their feasibility study, they have a ramp coming in the judge's door.
Mm-hmm.
So long run, we're going to be moving the judge back here and creating a little courtroom back there for her. There'll be 2 ADA accessible bathrooms here. And then in their plan, where the city attorney's office is, they have 2 ADA accessible bathrooms created up there. But there are a lot of things in that plan that the mayor and I and different people around here looked at it and said, no, that's not going to work for us. So even on their proposal for the restrooms, we may do something different in their design. But there's pictures, diagrams, and everything in the middle if you want to look at those.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is this grant a one-to-one matching?
No, I don't remember what the matching requirement on this was, but the maximum that can be applied for is $500,000, and the ADA upgrades alone are going to be just under $1 million. So we need to come up with the other $500,000 just to do the ADA upgrades. And then I'm applying for another grant, which it's looking pretty good that we'll get it, that will help with 60% of the roof costs. And then there's another grant that I'm looking at that we might be able to get to help with refinishing the floors in the stage upstairs. So that would reduce some of that cost. That we'll have. Once we get the water, if we ever get the water department moved to their building out of the lagoon, then we'll have all this area back here that will be, like I said, the judge's office, small courtroom, more offices. And those costs will have to be raised through the community unless another grant opportunity comes up.
We're on the public meeting regarding environmental review for construction in the Dillon City Hall building related to ADA upgrades. Anybody else have any comments or questions or points of view, any of that, pro or con? We'll just sit and wait for a couple more minutes, and if we get no more, then we'll recess the meeting and wait for the next one to start.
And actually, if you look at the application, wherever it may be in the packet, near the end of that are the questions that I had to answer for the environmental review. So yeah, Appendix B, those are the questions that we can look through those. Those are determining that we are exempt. part 3 of that explains why we are exempt from doing the environmental review.
Oh, so it's a very nice project.
Is there a question?
No. That'd be great.
It's become a very quiet group when we're on camera.
Okay, one more time, we'll see if there's anybody who wants to comment. Seeing none, how about a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn. Second.
So moved by Russ, seconded by Dan to adjourn the public meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, public meeting adjourned at 7 o'clock, so another 6 minutes, somewhere in there, we'll start the public, or the regular meeting of the council. MT City Council for February 19, 2020 to order. Todd, pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item, minutes.
Move to approve.
All three or?
All three.
Second.
It's been moved by Don, seconded by Russ. Discussion.
We're approving the city council meeting minutes.
Yeah, all three.
I just have one correction.
Okay.
February 5th, typo, page 2 of 7. Next to last sentence, all caps, Spearhead, Little League, Inc.
Oh.
Just a typo on little.
Okay.
Call for the question.
Question's been called for to approve the February 5th, 2020 public hearing minutes for the Gordy Miller minor subdivision, the February 5th, 2020 public hearing minutes for the city bus grant, and the February 5th, 2020 meeting minutes of the regular council. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. I take that as unanimous for all three. Next item, I have no petitions or communications, so we'll go right into the mayor's report. First item is to approve the Gordy Miller minor subdivision.
Move to approve.
Second. It's been moved by Russ, seconded by Don. Discussion.
Questions?
Yes.
There's jotted in with some buildings that are on lots 4 and 2, and 2 is shown as an office building. I assume that's going to be spec. What about the buildings on lot 4?
Lot 1 is where Subway is. Lot 2 is where Dottie's Casino used to be. That building is currently there. Lot 4 is the agricultural business, and it's outbuildings. Lot 3 is the only building that does not have a.
Only block doesn't have buildings.
So those buildings that are with continuous lines on lot 4, they exist,
Yes.
but the other buildings are for the future, correct?
No, they exist as
No,
well.
What's the difference between
Oh, it's
the
also,
dotted lines and the solid lines?
well, in lot 4, those are dotted too. They just got closer dots.
So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5 major buildings on lot 4 existing.
I wouldn't say they're major buildings. There's one major building and the others are more sheds, outbuildings, accessory buildings, I guess is the proper term.
Okay. And on lot 2, you indicated that that's where Dottie's is.
Yes.
Is Dottie's being converted into an office building, or is that being taken out in a new building?
That is up to the current owner, what they'd like to do with the building.
Okay.
That's out of our scope.
All that they're coming in for is they're asking to split. This property right now is just one big, or two big pieces, or one big piece.
Yeah, it's It's currently just it's one tract of property that Mrs. Miller owns. And she'd like the opportunity to divide it into 4 different lots. Obviously, it would make sense that Subway would own their lot. Someone would own the lot of Dottie's. The ag business would like to own their own lot. And then that would open up that 3rd lot for whatever development Mrs. Miller would like to do.
There's no off-site work to be done in regards to all of this?
Offsite in,
Streets, sewer, water?
no, everything's in place.
Are all off-sites?
Yep, everything's in place.
And it runs right along Selwood Drive.
And as far as on-site improvements under the subdivision act, they're gonna take care of all of that?
Yeah, everything's, yep. Mr. Gross did an excellent job in preparing all the documents and the DEQ approval. Mrs. Miller's been kind of tough to deal with, but
Jim?
I just had a brief comment. On the right-hand side of the survey, there's a paragraph that says a waiver of right to protest. I don't think you can do that anymore. In other words, condition the approval on waiving somebody's right to protest an estate or something like that. I'm pretty sure that's not permitted anymore.
On my copy, it's unreadable.
Yeah, I can't read what it says besides waiver.
It's
of right
barely
to
readable,
protest.
but that's what I look at it. I don't know that you can do that anymore. So just something for future consideration, that's all.
Do you understand?
Sure. If
I
you
think-
don't want it on a plat, I can just line it out.
Well, the thing is, the Supreme Court, I think, came down with a ruling that says you cannot put a restriction, make somebody come in with for a SID later. Is that what they're waiving their right to protest a SID?
Yeah,
that's
that's a
good.
requirement for the county. Maybe they don't know that there's been,
I bet
is that
it's-
a court case or is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, so I bet it's not a requirement anymore.
Okay,
Or if it is, they're probably asking to
Okay.
see them in court again.
call for the question.
Question's been called for to approve the Gordy Miller minor subdivision. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. I take that as unanimous.
Thank you for your
Okay.
counsel.
It's done.
Thank you. And
So bring her in.
thanks- Thanks a lot for all your help.
oh, you're very welcome. Thank you. And thank you, Mrs. Miller. You're not quite that tough to deal with.
I brought something, I didn't know.
And if you remove that, I don't know if it's cost you extra or just exit out, whichever, and then bring in the,
I have the milers.
oh, you have the mileage? Okay, never mind.
Okay.
We'll get them signed for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next item on the agenda is approve a resolution of intent of the City Council of the City of Dillon setting date for hearing and providing notice for a hearing to approve the Todd Mobile Home Park.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved by Russ, seconded by Don. Discussion. This is mainly just setting up, this is not approving, this is setting up to have a hearing to take partly comment. And then we will go into the, county will be given to the council after the hearing.
Call for the question.
Question's been called for to approve the resolution of intent of the City Council of the City of Dillon set date for hearing, providing notice for a hearing to approve the Todd Mobile Home Park. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. I take that as unanimous. Okay? We'll get that noticed and have the meeting next month, next meeting, or not the meeting, public hearing next meeting. Next one, we had a meeting before this regular one on the resolution of environmental assessment. That's what we have in front of us now. Asking for your approval.
Move to approve. Second.
It's been moved by Dan, seconded by Russ. Discussion. This is pretty much just saying that we've determined the environmental assessment and impact statement's not necessary by law. And so then we'll just send a resolution to them.
Call for the question.
Question's been called for to approve the resolution of the City Council of the City of Dillon affirming that environmental assessment and environmental impact statement are not necessary for construction related to ADA upgrades in Dillon City Hall. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. I take that as unanimous.
If you could, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to say thank you to Stacy for going above and beyond with this. So thank you.
Yes, she's getting a few grants and trying for more. Thank you. The next item is to approve the historical preservation grant application.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved by Dan, seconded by Russ. Discussion. That's the one that we're applying, or part of it. The rest was pictures, and that's in the book. Like she said, I don't know if we're gonna send this book, but we'll send copies of it.
Yeah, I'm going to send a certain number of copies in, digital copy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this will go before the legislature in January, and they'll vote on it sometime between then and May. We'll find out in May if we get the grant, and if we get the grant, then we can start calling for bids about July of that year, and hopefully have everything done by July 22. That's the plan, if we can do our part and raise the funds that we need on this side of things.
I'd like to echo Councilman Swan's comments. Anybody that's ever attempted to start to finish, put together something like that, it's a Herculean task in addition to your normal duties. So I would compliment you also.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, has the city approached our legislative, both our senator and our representative, to carry this project through?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I plan on.
Actually, did speak with Tom Welch, so he's aware of it. I have not seen Jeff Wellborn. Tom comes in once a month when he's paying his bill, and he took a copy, and
Oh,
I explained what we're doing, and yeah, he's very behind us.
Great.
yeah, he helps us quite a bit. I really think he was instrumental in getting the TSEP and the RRDL grants through for last year's, for the water line crossing one. So, and I haven't seen Wellborn for a while, so I'm not sure if he's up in Helena now or.
Yeah. Well, and if we could make up their own special books, and have it with their names on them and stuff like that, it really helps to get that carried through.
Put Pauline on it.
Yeah.
Go
Well, I'm glad to see that she put in the architect's name, because I think that's a plus for the city, because he was well known back in those days, very famous. So, felt that was an important thing that needed to be put in.
Yeah.
Call for the question.
Question's been called for to approve the Montana Historical Preservation Grant application. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. I take that as unanimous. Thank you. Okay, next item is to approve the second reading of the ordinance amending the Dillon Municipal Code Title 6, Chapter 4, Cable Television Franchises.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved by Dan, seconded by Russ. Discussion.
Is this Title 6 or Title 5?
5. We put 6 on the sheet. It's actually 5. It's correct on the on the ordinance itself.
Okay, thank you.
This time it's the same document. I can't remember if there's any change. If there was, I made the change and I got rid of all of the lines outs and inserted the line ins. So this is the final document unless you guys decide to change any part of it, which I hope you really don't much, because this is part of the contract too, so.
Well, when it comes time to
Oh,
contract with them again, we can change stuff.
Right. Well, I will not be mayor then. So
I
that's
won't
off
be
of my
either.
Call for the question.
Question's been called for to approve the second reading of ordinance amending Dillon Municipal Code Title 5, Chapter 4, cable television franchises. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. I take that as unanimous. I will sign it in 30 days from about now. Not that the contract's in effect anyway, but. Next item is, I put it here because on the ad hoc committee, it's kind of created by the mayor, so I suppose mayor report. So these are minutes on what we're talking about for the ad hoc committee.
Move to approve the minutes of February 5th, 2020.
Second.
It's been moved by Russ, second by Dan. Discussion. I know they had a meeting today too, but this one I think went very well. I didn't make it to this one, but
Today went very well as well.
Good. Went better? I wasn't there. Okay. Is that a hint?
We had a focus today.
Oh, okay.
Call for the question.
Question's been called for to approve the February 5th, 2020 meeting minutes of Ad hoc Community Affair Committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. I take that as unanimous. Okay, next one, citizens' requests. Oh, just for the information as everybody's reading it over and just interrupt. The why I say, I assume that's, or recognize that as unanimous, or I understand it as unanimous. I don't know how I ever say it. What that mainly means is I'm giving anybody a chance to say they recuse themselves at that point. So when I say I take that as being unanimous, that would be the time that if you wanted to be recused from that vote or have it recognized, that's the time to tell us.
Is there an issue with the sewer line in the alley down there that it keeps blocking every time the hydro flush it through? On 10994, 20 East Main. Seems like we've seen that before, haven't we?
I believe it's just routine maintenance.
Yeah, they're just doing routine maintenance.
Hasn't it backed up in there before when they hydro flush that?
It's happened, yes. I don't know the timeline of difference, but yeah, it has
I
happened
just wonder
before.
if there's an issue with that sewer line that
That particular
needs to be
building.
looked at or something.
Okay.
I don't know.
This is not the first time that hydro flushing's been going on where there's been citizens or businesses that have indicated that they've had a backflow, right?
Correct.
How many occurrences, roughly, give or take a million, have had of those?
Oh, maybe 2 a year.
Are they increasing or decreasing?
No, it's just, no, I have not seen an increase in them. It's just a random fluke type thing that happens. But
Or someone's-
So there's nothing that we need to look at in terms of what we're doing or
well,
how to prevent it or
the guys are on top.
notify someone before they show up so that
The
they
guys
can
are.
do anything to prevent it.
The guys are on top of it in that they prepared is that they put on the right heads and all the various things to do it correctly. They do a great job, and it's, every once in a while something happens and it backs up. And in this case, I think there may be possible issue with the bank that we can look at. But at this point, now isn't the time we can really look at those type of things without.
And if somebody does have a continuing problem where it's coming back through their lateral, theoretically, they can put a backflow valve in there.
They can, yeah.
Correct.
That's correct. And then we also, we mark it, we have a database made that we mark the ones that we do. And it seems like there's a pattern that it starts happening more often. Then we investigate further, and we also go down and keep hydro flushing more often. So we can try to eliminate the blockage before it gets too bad.
And there's certain areas that the guys do once a week, just to make sure that there aren't any problems.
And they're going up and doing hydro flushing, not prophylactically, but because of a problem, right?
Well, past problems, we just want to stay in front of them.
Right. It's a lot easier to go out hydro flushing than go try to clean up people's houses or apologize for doing it and get the insurance company involved. It's a lot better just to try to hydro flush and get it fixed before a problem occurs.
It's a proactive approach.
Right.
So is the insurance company involved in here? Because I see she come back with a follow-up.
Yes, they are.
plan.
They are.
Yeah.
Because that's what got my attention. I seem like we've seen a couple of claims now, or
Yeah.
attempted claims anyway, same place or the same block. But
Is that the reason for the two,
Yes.
994 and 995, is because she was putting together a claim?
Yeah.
And some of them are hard to fix. Because some places, when they designed, they really didn't do much prevent the flow. I mean, if there's a basement on some places and they have it draining into the sewer from the basement, then whenever something happens, just a little bit of water goes up it, it'll go right up into the house. You know, so instead of having it drop into the sewer, it comes right off from it. And those are really tough to. So some of these really are not the cities. It's the landowners or the plumber that put it in 50 years ago or longer.
Or 100?
Or 100. You know, so the only way is at that point, if there's some places that are really having problems, and we've just discussed with the Water and Sewer Committee, one of them that we're noticing on Montana Street down there, one of the our big main that we're looking into fixing because it is causing more and more problems more often. And so the only option is we gotta dig it up and fix it. So we're starting through that process. So we do try to watch, but never can you catch them all. But we try. Any others for citizen requests? Okay, we'll move on.
Just one question. 991, Sharon Anderson, is that name correct?
Yes.
It is, okay.
So Mr. Mayor, have you gone down and looked at that? Going from Monroe onto Walnut Street, the fence that blocks the view? I meant to go down and look at that.
Okay, that's a unique situation. And that fence has been there for years, since that house has been built. So roughly 20 years.
It's one of the first houses, and secondly, if the interchange is designed like this, it actually curves. The fence does curve to allow room for the stop sign. If we want to complain, I will go 2 blocks up, and that white vinyl fence comes all the way to the corner as well.
It's
So
an
that's a
open
newer
fence.
fence.
I'm sorry. It's a newer fence, you can see through it.
That's the El Nichi place.
The fence has
So
been there
that's-
forever,
Okay,
so it's,
Now I know.
Yeah.
so there really isn't anything we can do about it. There's a stop sign there.
And the fence
So-
does come back.
Yeah,
It curves, literally curves.
I would almost venture to guess if they put in for a permit for that today, we'd approve it. Because they actually cut the corner off to be in the strike triangle.
Mhm.
If that's the same one, I'm assuming that's the one they're complaining about.
Yes.
And Ms. Anderson has lived there for probably as long as Nitchy's, that house has been there.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why all of a sudden it's a concern.
She got a new car, so she's sitting, but.
So she sits a little lower than.
Yeah, she sits much lower in the Audi than she did the other.
But, yeah, no, I understand that, but we can't go around town changing people's fences because your car sits low.
Any others? Okay, reports of the officers and boards of the city library board. Matt's gone, but we'll let Lori jump in and carry the weight.
First of all, our library board meeting was changed next week from Wednesday to Thursday at noon here in this room, because at this moment in time, we have one board member in town. That's it. They will not be back until Wednesday night. So we moved it to Thursday. We will have our stuff done before finance meeting at 4 on Thursday, so.
Actually, we're gonna have a meeting at 2, a meeting at 3, and a meeting at 4.
Okay, well, we'll be done before 2.
That would be good.
I talk really fast, it's like 45 minutes.
Okay.
30 minutes is my fastest meeting. And let's see, this next month we have intro to guitar, to classical guitar. There's 5 spots open. We have somebody coming in to teach it on Tuesday nights. We're gonna do an advanced genealogy class on Wednesdays. Thursdays is still story time. Book club is gonna be the 10th at 6:30, and it's There by Tommy Orange, if you guys want to participate. And Friends of the Library meeting is going to be the 3rd, that Tuesday, at 7. That is all that I have that's happening at the library at this time. We're still doing fly time, we've got one more week. We're starting our seed library, so Garden Club is coming and they're gonna do some talk about seeds this weekend. So they'll be there. And then we'll have more seed stuff. The seed library we put in the old card catalogs, and you can come in and check out heirloom seeds for your gardens. We teach you how to take the seeds so you can bring them back to us so we can continue to check them out and we continue to have seeds in our library. We do get some donations from the community on those. And so that's coming up, and a lot of grant writing. We're still trying to get our building fixed, so that's what's happening.
Any questions?
Lori, I had a citizen request that if you could possibly follow up fly tying with casting.
We do in May, every year. So it's usually the second week of May, but nobody shows up. But we're in the park with like 10 rods and casting for the last 2 years.
Okay. Well, I'll be there.
Perfect. Do you guys have anything else? No? Well, I appreciate it. Thank
Well,
you.
Thank
Lori.
you.
Thanks, Lori. City Attorney, Mr. Dolman.
Thank you. So we'll start by, prefacing that I've tentatively set up a training with Kelly Lynch of League of Towns and Cities. She's the general counsel for March 16th, late afternoon. And we've got some tentative topics for planning, zoning, and board adjustment. I think that's still going to need to be finalized yet, but it's definitely in the pipeline at this point, so I want to make everybody aware of that. Finalizing an opinion letter on access issues for the Todd Mobile Home Park. there's a lot of surveys and deeds to go through, so it's been somewhat of an arduous process, but it is being worked on, so I want everybody to know that. We're in the process of upgrading our office computers to Windows 10, and we've encountered some issues. And I know the mayor had earlier this week too, so mine's still yet to be upgraded. And when we upgraded Deb's, the sound quit working on any videos that she played, so that wasn't terribly helpful either. And then with Deb's assistance in finalizing a default judgment in the sewer collection case.
Any questions?
Among other things.
Okay, thank you, John.
Yeah.
Planning board, Mr. Hand.
Before you have 3 different planning board minutes for January 14th, January 16th, and January 30th. Ask for acceptance.
Move to accept all 3.
Second.
We move by Russ, second by Dan, discussion.
As you can see, there's been some new developments coming on in town, and we're happy to see that, and we're working through those as they come up. Some of which you saw tonight was Gordy Miller. She positive comes down the pike next year. With that, I'll answer any questions somebody has.
Any corrections to the minutes?
Oh, sorry for that.
Question called for.
Call for the question.
To accept the January 14th, 2020 zoning board, planning board meeting minutes, the January 16th, 2020, and the January 30th, 2020 meeting minutes of the planning board. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. I take that as unanimous. Now, any else you want?
That completes my report.
Any questions? Okay, we'll move on then, thank you. Zoning board. Let's do Mr. Schwant.
Well,
Since
thank you,
there isn't.
Mr. Mayor. We had a meeting last Tuesday, no minutes at this time, therefore no report.
Thank you. Director of Operations, Mr. Hazelton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really don't have anything to report. Guys are just doing their usual great job, and appreciate Mike Tyler and Nick Hager from coming in early last couple of weeks, actually about all month, to try to chip away at the snow and the ice to get that removed. And, they've been coming in early because once 7:30 rolls around, it's tough to do battle with cars. And so I appreciate the time they've put in to come in to do that. If you have not noticed, in the last 2 weeks since the last meeting, we lost a park bench on the bulb out on Bannock in Montana. A gentleman a couple weeks ago slid around the corner on a Saturday and took out the bench. And then Friday night, a gentleman in a semi completed it by taking out the post. So we're looking at insurance companies paying for new benches, a new bench and new post.
It wasn't the post that was broken, was
It
it?
was the broken one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there on site. I took a photo of it and submitted it to the party to be Mr. Mayor.
Has there been any thought about not replacing that post? And it seems like that's a target for everybody who tries to make that corner. This will be the 3rd time there's been some kind of damage to it.
Well, that would be a discussion that is out of my hands, not in my
Maybe we
jurisdiction.
could send that to the street and alley.
Here.
committee.
Three now.
You're not talking about the light post at the northwest corner that's broken, correct? Correct?
Yes.
That's right.
That's
It's now gone.
It's
gone,
gone.
there's nothing there.
Just 4 bolts sitting up with a cone.
And there's a cone covering.
And I appreciate Northwest Energy coming out so quickly to work on it, and also the police department too,
How recent was this?
last Friday night.
Friday night at 7:30.
Yep, Valentine's night.
Was it you?
I can't go on it. It was right there.
The post I'm talking about, just a few days ago, was still there with the Limbs hanging down.
That's the one that was taken out on the
Yeah, that's
14th.
the, on Friday.
That was taken out on the 14th?
Yes.
On Friday.
Okay.
Now, we're still having trouble locating those, aren't we, Todd?
Well, there's a gentleman in Bozeman that just told me that he's sold them to, but never responds to my emails.
So I suppose as far as replacing it, we ought to find something that we can actually get, even though it doesn't match, and perhaps maybe change the other ones out as well, if that's the case.
Well, but the discussion came up about even replacing it, so that would have to be a discussion.
Well, it's
But
in.
yeah, I agree, Mr. Hammond.
You know, there's not a truck in town that can make that corner pull in a trailer. If there's cars parked on Helen, or on Montana Street, it's almost impossible to get around there without hitting it. I mean, like I said, this is the third time I know of this. The first time it's been damaged this bad, but I think the light's been broke twice. That arm's been broke a couple of times. So I know of at least 3 times, if not 4 times, it's been hit. It's really, just not a very big place.
And the best thing to do would be break up the concrete in that corner, put the pipe, the conduit over and have the light on the other side of the sidewalk and put it there. I know it's not as nice looking for people, but at least it'll survive.
Well, maybe we ought to consider taking those bulbs and reducing the size of them some.
Well, that was kind of in the time I started, and it was the downtown group, and they picked one they liked. It was handmade almost kind of thing, and now we have a hard time finding them. So I think we're going to try to find one that matches the style. We'll probably end up trying to get it moved, see how much that'll cost, and I won't be buying one yet, because it'll be coming out of the lighting district, and especially if it costs, those metal ones will cost, like this one was 6 to 7 grand is how much each light cost. And so I don't have the money in the budget. We're gonna have to budget for it. And so truthfully, unless we borrow money from one of our funds, some other fund, we don't have the money now anyway to pay for it.
What's a normal street light cost?
Well, it's a pole. And
I'm gonna approach the insurance company for the trucking company first, for the funds to replace it, so it doesn't cost the city anything.
That's
I
going
didn't
to be a
dispute it.
short-term solution, I guess, on we can perhaps straighten out how to look at that.
Councilman Graham, I echo your comments as far as that corner and tractor trailers and all. So possible solutions, just brainstorming quickly. Is it possible that we could put up some kind of signage to warn the truck drivers before they get in a jam that they can't get out of? Or is it possible to limit somehow trucks going through the intersection with some sort of ordinance?
I'd probably
Not all
recommend-
trucks, obviously, but just, you know, you don't want to be taking a 30-footer through there for obvious reasons.
It's not only just semis. There's a saddle shop down there that routinely has people pull in with their fancy horse trailers. They can't make it around that corner either, so if you start doing that, pretty soon you're gonna be limiting what little bit of business we have in Dillon, because the semis are supplying the materials for the downtown city, and if you tell the guy at the saddle shop he ain't allowed to have his customers come down there, he's gonna be kind of upset too.
I know. But it was a tractor trailer that did most of the damage this time, right?
The report just indicated a semi.
It's a seven.
Semi, okay.
Seven load.
So, any thoughts of anybody else in that regard?
Let's send it to street and alley for discussion.
Well, I think a lot of the stuff was paid for with the uptown improvement stuff was a grant that they had gotten. And that's why they're so expensive. They use that grant to get that. I don't think they ever thought of down the line that they may have to replace one or two, so.
I just remember when the Metland bought that one and they're still making payments on theirs.
Well, it's another case where a good group has good ideas, and then we end up with the bill when we have to fix it.
Well, Mr. Mayor, isn't the insurance, the semi, that they had, they will pay for the light pole and all the damages, correct? We aren't paying for it.
We don't know.
Necessarily.
We're gonna talk to them to try to get it.
Brenda provided me the information for the insurance company this afternoon,
Yeah.
but I'll start that process.
And we're gonna have to redesign the whole place, because truthfully, if somebody can slide around the corner and take the bench out, what would happen if somebody sitting on the bench? That's gotta get moved. You can't have it there.
Well, like I said, it's that same corner, all the issues is that corner.
It is, that's where all of the problems have been, is that one corner. So we gotta redesign that some, and that'll be in front of the street alley. So we're hoping the insurance company will pay.
I've never heard of that somebody causes damage and then they don't, their insurance does not cover that.
Have you ever heard of an insurance company denying a claim? Or fudging a claim?
Well, Mr. Dolan, I mean, does that seem reasonable to you that a semi could do damage to the city and then their insurance would not pay for it?
No, it doesn't, but I don't know the status of the claim, so I don't think it's reasonable at all. They cost me insurance.
Well, I'll start the process. to
We're
see
gonna
what I
start
can-
looking and getting it through. It just happened Friday, and Monday was a holiday.
Yeah.
We're getting it through. We'll get covered. We're just informing you guys. We will get it to the street and alley on the first meeting. You know, we don't have to design it today, now, okay?
Well, I personally have seen a semi try to make the turn from, trying to remember, Montana Street
To ban.
on to Bannock,
Right.
going east. And so
Going west.
I think it's only a matter of time as far as, hey, you brought up the benches, which is a very good point. If somebody's sitting there, when that happens, it's gonna be a bad day. So, I'm not certain that just attacking that one corner is gonna fix it.
Well, that one's a little different. It was put together different compared to the other ones. The other ones, if you look, the lights further away from the street. The benches are quite a bit further away from the edge of the street. It was just, that one was different. Even though the design was the same, it got built different. So,
I was just gonna say, Todd, I says, do you think we need signage there on Noble Street where those sinkholes are? Because I went across there with my car and I didn't even know it was there, that it was full of water, and I bottomed out on the front end, and I wasn't doing but about 10, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I understand, because I was in my daughter's car one morning.
Does our rule of three count in when you're a council member too?
I think it's gonna be a seasonal.
Well, I mean, even if
It's
we
gonna be a
had
season of
signage there
potholes.
that said, you know, walk, slow down because of pothole, I mean, because it goes clear across on the one,
Yeah,
clear across the road.
but if somebody go in and
no, it's
just
just,
hook up a water line there,
No, it's just sunk there. It's just, I mean, it really dips. There's two of them.
I'll have to go down and look at it.
we'll have the guys look at tomorrow and see what we can throw.
And even if we had signage to warn people that it's there, so that, I mean, it's not that there's that much traffic on that street, but every once in a while I use it. I know some other people use it. Well, you do.
Yeah, and there's going to be some spots on Thompson too that are starting to develop, and so it's going to be the season of potholes, I think.
So is this a pothole or a?
No, it's where the drain line comes from the park, goes across towards the golf course. It's, I bet you it's down that far.
I watched a UPS truck bounce off it the other day.
It sounds like a collapsed culvert.
So it sounds like to me too. We'll have to look at it.
Trails Coalition.
There goes our motor truck.
Okay, any other stuff?
No, I don't have anything
It's
else.
still on your report.
No, just appreciate what the guys are doing. Good working group of guys. Appreciate what they do.
Thank you. Police Department, Chief Garrison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I ask the council to approve the officer activity report for January 2020.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Dan, seconded by Russ. Discussion.
Is the overtime in hours or days?
Exactly. It felt like days, yeah. It felt like days. I have a few things, if there's no questions, I have a few things I want to go through. Everybody keep,
Oh, let's wait, let's approve this.
oh, sorry, okay.
Oh,
If there's any questions.
good question.
Questions been called for to approve the January 2020 activity report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. I take that as unanimous. Anything else, Chief?
Yeah, a few things. We're doing an application search right now. We've got several good applicants that will be coming down the pike shortly. There was an article in the Dillon Tribune today too that I want to just clarify for everybody in regards to a SRO, a school resource officer. It's just in its infancy stages at this point. We're speaking with the schools and just kind of seeing what they come up with and just trying to get some guidelines on where we can find funding, possibly through them, or whatever. So it's just a discussion that we're just beginning to have. And then also I'd like to say that we did compliance checks with this. We use funding from a state grant fund through what's called the Haver Help Desk to do compliance checks on alcohol compliance, make sure us, selling minors and that kind of thing. And I'll come out with a report on that, but it looks like, I think we did 14 of them, I want to say, and there was only one that did not pass. So that we're dealing with that situation. And also we have some officers going to some trainings. We have a crisis intervention training here in Dillon. We're sending 3 officers to. We go in kind of partnership with the college and do those CIT trainings. They're very good, especially with the amount of mental health problems we have with our demographic that we deal with. It just shows them how to help them handle people that are in mental crisis. And our goal is, we've had a lot of them go through it already. And my goal is to make sure that all of our officers are CIT certified. This will get down to, I think we'll only have 2 after that will need it. Officer Pedersen's going to interview school. Nikki and Ian are going into a street crime school. And then Officer Alvarez is going to an administrative training class. And these are all trainings that are paid out till the end of March. So this is between now and the end of March. Let's see what else I got. So one of the things I've been kind of excited to talk about a little bit and let people know what we've luckily stumbled upon. And the mayor's kind of unaware of all of this. So, but I think it's a good thing for Dillon. So what we did is the drug fund is separate from the city's fund. Drug fund comes from seizures, from court costs, from donations, if they're given to that. We have some money in there, and we've been looking at a police dog for quite some time now. So what we did is we looked into several dogs, we talked to several people, and Officer Rumsey was really, he was kind of a catalyst to all this. He came and spoke to me, and I said, probably not. I wasn't too excited about it. I said there were some parameters that I think Dillon would be best for the community of Dillon, and for me to see some changes with it. I wasn't all interested in a bite dog at all. And so we were looking through the process. There was a lot of dogs we looked at, kennels we looked at, and everything else, and tested 2 dogs. They just didn't work for what we thought, and ended up speaking to the guy that does all the dogs for the police departments in Bozeman, Butte,
Jefferson County's got one in, but he's a law enforcement officer and a dog handler. So we did our research on him, and so we kind of started talking to him about some things. Well, he had some dogs there, but they were mostly bite dogs at the time, and the cost of them were astronomical. And so he calls us here a few weeks ago and stated that the guy that he gets the dogs from, or that he trains the dogs for, it's kind of a complicated thing, I guess, how they divide them out, is the dogs come from Europe. And he had a dog there that was not a bit interested in biting anybody. And so they did the test out on him and everything. And he's literally, what he said is, he goes, the dog can smell really good, but he's got a broken canine. He's only 2 years old, and that's about the time they come up. He says he's got a broken canine, and he says the dog's just not interested in anything but a piece of training material, which is very good for a scent dog. So they pass it through all the tests and everything. It's an amazing scent dog. Those dogs are about $20,000. Yeah, I know. And so, but the good thing about it is the guy that had the dog would rather seen it be used somewhere than having to come up from North Carolina to get the dog and come back. Therefore, he gave us the dog, and we just have to pay for the training, which isn't overly cheap either, but it was $5,000 for both the dog's training and for the handler training. So Jared went down, looked at the dog, tested the dog out, brought a guy from California that's familiar with dogs, with police dogs. He's a retired police department, canine handler. Everything just worked out really well. And so we're going to go forward, purchasing the dog through the drug fund. And then Officer Rumsey, being Officer Rumsey, has been speaking to different agencies and whatnot, community members and groups. And the Beaverhead Foundation gave him $3,500 to assist in the dog's care and handling and whatever it needs. He also spoke to vets and people about dog food and just maintenance down the road for a canine, and has been very receptive, and we got a lot of help. So I'll, once everything's kind of, in place, I think Jared goes down, I want to say the second week in April for his training, and, we'll have him back here by then after that. And, but before then, I'll give you a full report on where we're at and what we're going and what we're doing. And I just wanted to let you know, there's no funds coming out of the city. We were able to figure it out. And so as the time goes on, there'll be a few things that we probably need and stuff, but I think we've got a fund there that we can work off of. So we're going to do a 503c fund, a non-taxable fund, as we're in the beginning stages of that, so then people can donate as well. And Officer Rumsey has stated that he'd be more than interested to go and do some fundraisers and things. And the dog's a drug dog and a track dog. So, one of our big things is we're not going to be tracking people for the most part. As far as, if somebody runs from us, but it's not an attack dog. One thing that Officer Rumsey brought up that I was pretty impressed with is, he said that, elderly people are mentally ill in the community during cold seasons and stuff like that, that if a person wanders away from a facility, that the dog can be utilized for tracking those type of things, so for welfare checks and all that. And also we're talking to the schools, and they're very, very interested in us doing, searches of the school and stuff. So I think all in all, we're making the department a little better and the community a little better. I just have to thank Officer Rumsey and the other officers. Everybody bought in, did a lot of research on it, and we're moving forward as the department needs growth. So we're pretty happy about that. So if you have any questions on that, I'd be more than happy to make up a bunch of stuff that I don't know.
So, Mr. Mayor, is this the 501c3? Is it like Friends of the Police Puppy or Drug Dog or us?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. No, what it'll be is we have an attorney that has donated her time to do this for us as well, to set it all up. And so, yeah, it'd be like a donation, kind of a deal like the Friends of the JC Park or whatever.
But you'll be friends of the, friends of the,
We'll figure something out. We gotta have something flashy, right?
Friends are
Take a bite out
fighting.
of crime.
There you go, yeah, we'll
Take
steal
a
them.
bite out, there you go.
We'll steal them and grow, yeah.
Friends of feeding toothless.
There we go. We're toothless. I told him the dog's name's Mac, but we could have changed it. I decided that I made the decision that I like Mac because I always called Jared Rumsey a cheese ball, so we got Mac and cheese. So yeah, friends of Mac and cheese maybe. But yeah, it's a good program. He did a wonderful job. Other officers helped out, and it's just I think it's brought the department really kind of together on a new project as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got the dog from Europe?
We didn't get the dog from Europe, the kennel got the dog from Europe, but yeah, the dog's from Europe.
What kind of dog?
It's a German Shepherd. Yeah. Yeah, you should see a picture of it though, man. It looks more like it looks like a German Shepherd, but it acts like a lab or something with a tongue hanging out. Yeah, so he said it's a super nice dog. And my biggest thing was if it goes into a school, if kids mob it, I don't want the dog to be a problem. I don't want it to, nip, bite, anything like that. So that was my big setback with the dog at all, because you just don't know. But I contacted our insurance company, everything's covered through our insurance company, MIA and whatnot. So, everything seems to be in place, but, we'll take the extra time to make sure that nobody's getting eaten up.
Who's gonna take care of the dog? Is it
Jared
gonna-
Rumsey.
So it's assigned to him?
Yes, it is. And he told me, I didn't get him to sign anything, but he told me that he'll make sure he stays with the police department until the dog's retirement date. So I'm hoping the dog lives to be about 30. Yeah. He's a good kid, well, good man, he's a good man.
You promised at least 5 more years.
I know, but we have that drug fund money, and it can only be used for drugs. It can only be used for those things. And I thought, I wasn't sold on it. I've never been really sold on a police dog for Dillon, but I thought that maybe my old ways need to change a little bit. And all the officers agreed, and we went forward. And progress is good. And my old arcade brain maybe just wasn't there yet, but I think it's a really good thing as long as it's not biting people. And it's a community involvement thing, it's we'll bring it to the schools and the kids will love it, and I think it's good for the community and public relations as well.
So this dog gonna help you find a few vestigial?
We're hoping, yeah, we're hoping. Mhm.
For you.
Yeah.
These training, you said in March, is that around the 19th?
The CIT training, is that the one we're talking about here?
The reason I ask is I know there's some officers coming down from Deer Lodge around the 19th
Yeah,
for
yeah.
training down here.
Yeah, that's what it'd be, the CIT training.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're lucky that they have it here, because it smacks our cost down. We're paying for the people to go there, but we're not paying huge amounts for motels and all this stuff that normally we have to. And we've done a really, really good job. I shouldn't say we, is an I or the department, but just the community in general, getting stuff organized and making sure that our costs go down a little bit with training.
Yeah.
Because we need the training definitely, and I think the mental health stuff is probably, at this juncture in society and just juncture in law enforcement, I think that the mental health crisis really that's going on, it should be our top billing. So
That's one of the reasons I knew about it is one of them is my son-in-law, and they're looking for a place to stay.
Oh, right. Is he a cop in Deer Lodge?
Pardon me?
Is he working Deer Lodge?
Yeah, he's a city police officer there, and then I
Oh.
think there's a sheriff deputy coming down.
Oh,
as well.
cool.
There's 2 or 3 of them coming.
Oh, good, yeah, they need, in Deer Lodge, they need this training too.
Yeah.
I can tell you honestly from my one experience with watching it in play, I've taken the training and stuff, but I'm not out there as much. But the officers, I was on a call once, here it was 2 years ago, and Jeremy Alvarez was on the call. And if Jeremy, maybe it was just Jeremy, because Jeremy's really good at his job, but with that CIT training, I can almost 99% say that someone would have been killed if that wasn't implemented. It would have been us probably, but unfortunately it would have been someone who was mentally, ill at the time. And, so it's invaluable when you put it that way.
Any other questions? Or anything else, Chief?
No, sorry for taking up most of your day.
Fire department, none of them are here, but you guys could approve some of those.
Move to approve the city clerk report for the fire hall for January 2020. Move to approve the budget versus expenditures for fire hall for January 2020. Move to approve activity report for January 2020 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Russ, seconded by Dan. Discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I think you ought to take notes by the way they set up their agendas.
Oh, the fire district? Yeah,
I think they're 6 lines long.
sometimes that pushes it.
Yeah, I've never seen such a loose agenda in my life. No questions, we'll call for the question.
Question we call for to approve the city clerk report for the fire hall for January 2020 and the budget versus expenditure for fire hall for January 2020 and activity report for January 2020. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Take that as unanimous. Okay, we'll move on. No city court, no treasurer, tree board. There we go.
Yes, before you are the minutes from the January 7th, 2020 tree board meeting.
Move to accept.
Second.
It's moved to accept by Russ, seconded by Dan. Discussion.
Sure looks like you've been effective at grant writing anyway.
I'll go over that one after we get done with the minutes. But I
Call for the question.
Question called for to accept the tree board January 7th, 2020 meeting minutes. All those and the information for the Dillon Tree Board grant received from 2008 to present. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Take that as unanimous.
I wanted to invite everyone connected with the city. We still have a couple of openings. These would be paid scholarships for the, it's the Montana Small Town Tree Board Retreat. And it will be held in Shoto this year on March 19th and 20th. Unfortunately, the mayor will be there the next week, right?
Or the week after.
Yeah.
Right that time frame.
And he doesn't feel called to go to Shoto twice in 1 month. But we have 2 more scholarships. And that's a fun 2 days of meetings, and they bring in scholars from all over the country. And they talk about urban forests, both in small cities and large cities. So if anyone would like to go, we'd love to have you. On the second page is we thought we'd just put together a list of the grants and what those grants have been used for. And so we could go back as far as 2008 so that you could see that through, I think it was February 3rd or February 6th or something, we had received $127,580 in grants. But I think that's an impressive number, but I'm more impressed with that 259 trees have been planted and 336 trees have been pruned. And I think I've been on maybe a half a dozen planting. They'll say, okay, we need to go plant 6 trees, who could go? And I go with them. And usually I'm probably more of a bother than a help, but I try and help. But those guys, it takes a lot of work to plant all those trees. I do have video, if anyone would like to see it, of us. I think we planted a total of 30 trees in the cemetery last year. In a blizzard. So it was cold and wet, and but that's a lot of trees, it's a lot of trees.
Maybe Joe, what were those tree selection guides that you created out of the Great Harvest? These seems like they're about a little over $32 an issue, and they must be pretty enthusiastic. tree guys.
No, we had probably 150 of those printed. And I do have more, I just didn't bring them tonight. If you would like one.
Well, it says he printed 250 of them, but they're $32 a piece. That's why I was curious.
Let me see how it's, this is the tree selection guide right here. And no, it's not $32 a piece. It was probably,
$32 for 100 or something.
yeah, and she always gives us a great deal, but they are beautiful, as you can see. And this one also corresponds to the Trail of Trees. And this one is kind of funny because you can take a walking tour of Dillon, and the trees have a little, it's a little barcode. The library has one. It's a barcode on it, and you could just, actually there's an app that you can put on your phone, you just hold it up to the barcode, it'll bring it up and it'll tell you all about that tree and about that species. But if you'd like to read about them, it's this. Thank you, Stacy. Yeah, these are great, and they do make our grants kind of pop when we include these with our grants.
Yeah.
They just make them pop.
Any other questions? Thank you. Okay, reports of standing committees, the City Council, Judiciary.
No meeting, no report.
Should say again,
No, that's fine.
Fire and order, how about?
No meeting, no report, but we do meet next week, Thursday at 3.
No, 4.
No, health and
No,
welfare is
2.
at 4.
2. At 2.
2, finance is at
The
3.
next one's at, yeah, fire and orders at 2, health and welfare is at 4, and the city, finance is at 3.
So you'll be here all day?
Yeah, he's on all 3 of them.
Therefore, no report, thank you.
Oh, you dropped 2 off, finance.
I was gonna say, what happened to number 2?
He just jumped.
Anyway, no meeting, no report.
It will be though on Thursday, not tomorrow, but the next week.
Week round, yep.
And fire and order, that'll be, I already got that one.
Yeah.
Health and welfare, you're on again.
No meeting, no report, but we do meet next Thursday at 4.
4.
Cemetery committee,
He said
Hey,
he brought me. We have for your acceptance the minutes from the February 10th, 2020 meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
we moved by Russ, seconded by Dan, discussion on the minutes.
Yes. On page 2 of 3, we go from line item 2 to number 3. Jump to the next page, number 5,
Yeah,
page 4. Or is it just misnumbered?
If you read under number 3, it says that these 2 items were tabled until later. So I brought them back in as 2 and 3 when they were discussed.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay.
Call for question?
question's been called for to approve the cemetery committee minutes for February 10th, 2020. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. I take that as unanimous for the minutes.
We have 2 action items. One is to approve the purchase or repair of the present frost remover. The frost remover is shown there on the back page, courtesy of Holland and Company. It looks like the top out of your barbecue grill. Present one basically is collapsed on the inside. We're looking to see if it can be renovated locally or not. If not, we'll need to purchase a new one.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved by Russ, seconded by Dan. And no, this is not going to be partially used to grill hot barrels.
Mr. Mayor, is this budgeted in this year's budget?
A
Do we have
good chunk
money in
of
the
it
budget?
is. I had budgeted 1,200, I think. And it turned out with shipping, we met the cost, but with shipping, it went to 1384 or for 39.89, somewhere near. So it will be needed to amend the budget a little bit for that one, for the frost removal.
But we're hoping we can get it repaired locally cheaper.
Yes, we're gonna try that first, if we can do it.
Okay.
Cheaper,
Cheaper than the 1389,
yes.
and that would come out of that 1,200 too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Call for the question.
Questions we call for to approve the recommendation to purchase a new frost remover if the present one cannot be repaired or a new one built locally for less. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay. Take that as unanimous.
The second action item is to approve recommendation to spend up to $4,000 for a new bridler. We prepare term. It's the lowering device. The present one that's been around, as near as we can tell, for at least 3 if not 4 years prior to Danny's being hired. He's been here 15 years.
Actually,
Danny checked it, it's 1974.
yep.
Okay.
That's as long as I've been around.
Boy, it is.
That's a long.
It is old.
And the frost remover was purchased in 98.
Yeah.
So 45.
Move to approve.
Second.
We move by Russ, seconded by Dan. Discussion.
Discussion, questions? I'm at the age that I'm gonna be using one of these things one of these days.
That's why we're getting a woman that's up to 1,000 pounds.
Could you please speak up?
And I know from the quote, not here, but where I'll be using it, it's an item that's billed by the funeral home. And in my experience, attending a few funerals in my life, and waiting around while things are disassembled, a few of those times, it seems as if I can't recall any instance of where those haven't been loaded into vans or trucks for the funeral home and taken away. And so certainly I'm going to be billed for it when I pass. President Hand estimated that the amortization for this over a 20-year period would be about $2 a shot, which in my case anyway, the funeral home's got a pretty good markup. I do have a call in to Julie to see what the lay of the land is, why we seem to be doing something, in my mind, different in providing this as a publicly funded service through the cemetery. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to touch base with her to find out what the answer is on that. I do have a question of why the city is incurring this expense rather than a funeral home and they amortizing it through the itemized cost to their clients.
One of the things that the discussion was that she's a private business and she goes to other cemeteries in Beaver County and outside of Beaver County with her equipment. So if she is out of town using that equipment, her equipment, then we have our own personal one here. So that's why, that's just one of the.
Wouldn't the funeral home, other than she being involved?
Well, if it's a funeral home like Idaho Falls, where they come to Dillon.
Right. But they would have, normally, they would have their own lowering devices.
That I don't know, I that Danny addressed that.
I don't know either.
Well,
Councilperson Hand kind of figured it out over 20 years, and with the number of burials we do per year, it's about $2 more if we charge them for using our equipment
right,
spread out over 20 years, so it's
as
really not a huge.
I pointed out, it's a small cost if you amortize it, but simply because we've got 11,000 left on the budget to spend, doesn't mean we have to spend it. And if it's a normal course of business, these items would be handled by funeral homes. I question why the city is having to incur the expense.
Maybe question for our insurance company, that we need to know that we can trust the equipment because the work's being done on our property. I don't know.
I actually talked to Julie, and that's basically what she says. She does have one, but hers is a portable one. It's could be unsafe if something, and the one the city has actually is just much better suited because it's not portable. The ones they bring with them are lightweight, portable, and if you get into a situation where the ground ain't quite, you could have an accident, and I would suspect that as deep pocket goes, the city's always responsible.
And Danny is the one that actually does the lowering,
Right.
so we want to know that Danny is safe when we do that too.
That was kind of how she explained it to me. I had the same question.
I'm sure Julie, and Julie's a friend of mine, I'm sure she'd rather not buy the equipment if she doesn't have to. If the normal course of business for other areas and other funeral homes and other cemeteries, is that the funeral home normally supplies it, takes it away, reuses it.
I didn't ask that question.
If this is an item that has to be moved on tonight, then so be it. But if not, I've got the open switch question of why the city would have to fund this rather than Julie or any funeral home in Butte or whoever that's involved in using the city cemetery. And as far as liability issues, I'm sure if we dissected that enough, we'd find other liability issues that would be involved in handling bodies and caskets and everything in the cemeteries.
I believe you'll find out that most anything to do with the cemetery is very emotional. Any little hiccup causes great consternation, and it doesn't go away quickly. I did have the opportunity to go and visit with Julie on a separate issue earlier, and they talked about stumbling one time carrying a casket, and it rippled, and the ripple's still out there, and this is 10 years ago. So having appropriate equipment to handle everything is good. She does indeed have a cheap one that she says is a piece of junk. If we're going to purchase one, then she encourages us to get the good one, which is listed here. Afraid on that's only $125. I was surprised by that, but apparently it breaks down. This is kind of a service we provided over the years that people come to expect it. We've got it there. So, we can raise the cost of our burials $5 and pay for the unit and get a couple bucks for interest or something to that. Maybe that would be completely appropriate way to do it.
Mr. Mayor, are you aware, does the funeral home charge the heirs or the family?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Usually it's part of a whole package. Casket and the services are X dollars.
Oh, okay.
So all the incidentals are supposedly included.
Okay. So there isn't an extra charge, like she's not charging the family for something that the city provides. I mean, if this is city equipment and Danny is actually the one who lowers the casket, that wouldn't be something that the funeral home would charge.
No, and I'm not questioning that. There's no question that she's not doing that. it's just a front-end load cost to the city of having to do this. True, we can amortize it over 20 years, like you say. But unless it has to be acted upon tonight, however the mayor wants to handle it. But I'd say just because we've got the $11,000 doesn't mean, that's incremental budgeting, you know, let's spend it before we lose the $11,000. The first item was obviously a good cost and we have to spend it. But this one, I think we can wait for a decision and see what Julie says. And if she says, yeah, that's a normal course of business in most areas and with most funeral directors, then maybe that's an issue that we should ask that she address.
Our present prior has become unsafe for use, as Danny indicated at our last meeting. So they're kind of running on a wish and a prayer. It'd be nice if we had this approved. We can certainly ask, and if it turns out that it's something that she should be providing, she can do that, and we can hold off doing it. But if it's something that we need to provide, we need to get it coming. So
Well, I'm
we
not
have
asking-
approval of it, that, for that reason, for that, but spend the funds or not at this time.
I'm not asking for an indefinite tabling. I'm just asking if we get together with Julie and just in 2 weeks decide it rather than tonight.
That would be fine, but let's go ahead and approve the expenditure now tonight so we can if we need to. Then bring it back and take the council's time second time.
Well, that kind of begs the question of whether or not it's really the city's responsibility or it's Julie's. And that needs to be decided. So how are you going to decide that after you've approved it, that it is a city expense that we're approving?
We can approve the expense, we don't have to expend the expense.
And who decides that?
That would be the director of operations of the mayor to determine
I'm comfortable with that.
Because to me, that, if you're a contractor, you have the tools that you need or you lease them.
that.
As a business, you gotta have them. You don't rely on a public domain to have it for you. And I agree with him. It's the question is, isn't this something that maybe she should have and not the city?
The other option, you can say it should be part of the city because it's part of what's used to put the product which we're selling, which is the lot space, the filler in the ground.
Well, what I'm getting at is, let's say the city is doing work on the building themselves, but they need scaffolding. They're gonna get charged to be using that scaffolding. And I just think, and I'm not against it, let me clear that up, but I think it's something, I agree with Richard, that needs to be looked into as to who, because to me, that's a tool that they use.
But they don't, that's the thing.
Yeah, Danny said that he puts that out for every funeral, whether they come from the funeral home in Sheridan, they come from Butte, they come from Helena, they use our equipment. He uses it to lower the casket liner. He said there's a bigger one, the Wilbert Vault, when that comes in, that, what did he say?
They have to have the truck set that way.
Yeah, so they have to use that, but he needs the Briar for lowering the liner, which we require. And it's not just Brundage Funeral Home that's using the equipment. We have it there kind of as a, I don't know, service for the various funeral homes. The ones coming out of town, that's just that much more equipment that they're going to have to put in the hearse that's carrying the casket.
Well, I was just raising the question, I'm not against it, it just seems to me that most businesses have their own equipment, and a funeral home is a business, I'm sorry, it is.
That's true, that's true.
And I agree with Richard, is the city liable or accountable to have that? I don't know that question, the answer to that question. It's just a question, and I think it's something that needs to be answered.
So if we needed to set the liners with you anyway, you should
But you
have.
just said the liners are set with another.
No, the one kind is. And there's only a couple of those they use every year, isn't it, Stacy?
We have one maybe every 2 or 3 months that they buy that Wilbur ball.
They do, okay. It's used more often than that.
Well, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
it's something that needs to be answered, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, my experience is not with this cemetery as far as sticking around and seeing what goes on and talking to people. But other places, other states, you have the hearse show up, you have a truck, usually pickup truck, that shows up with the shovels and everything else that's going to be needed to attend to what's required. And then generally you've got a little van that this and any other equipment that they need to take back to the funeral home that is at the site, the tents and everything else, chairs, whatever else, that goes into the van and back she goes. But my experience is that all of the fancy brass stuff and the lowering equipment and everything else, that all goes into the van and goes back to the funeral.
But were those private cemeteries or were they public cemeteries?
Both.
We can certainly explore it some more. I don't have a problem with that. But I want to get the equipment there so our workers aren't endangered. One way or the other, we gotta have something for them. You can't do it with tobacco. So we're gonna wind up buying one sooner or later, guys, I'm sorry. Something.
Also, before we make a decision, which we're heading, I think, close to right now, just for everybody's information, we're not spending 11 because we have the 11. It was just asked, do we have, and I said, we have 11,000 more revenue than we have expenditures. So to even be balanced, we have enough to cover it. If it's deemed by the council, then we need to have it. So that's, we're not saying that we gotta spend it. If it's not spent this year, it just passes over to next year's budget.
No, I was just reading from the minutes, you mentioned that it was budgeted, that the 11 was in the budget.
No, I
That's all.
said reviewed the budget and determined the cemetery has up 11.
Up to 11.
That may be used to purchase.
So,
Doesn't mean that it's budgeted, it doesn't mean it has to be. This one's not budgeted, this would be amending the budget with the vote here. But, now, it sounds like truthfully, to try to speed things up, we got a decision to make, we got a motion on the table to approve it, or if you want to wait till next meeting, just make a motion to table, and we'll jump right into the vote. That's the two options I see, table till next meeting.
Let's take call for the question.
Okay, the question's been called for to approve the recommendation to spend up to $4,000 for a new lowering device. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, that's unanimous.
Thank you, that completes my report.
Thank you. Parks Committee, Ms. O'Rourke.
We meet on the 27th or 28th or somewhere.
Wednesday.
26th, I believe.
26th, great, thank you.
City Hall, Mr. Graham.
No meeting, but we're gonna have a meeting here whenever our next meeting date is.
Well, it would have been, yeah, tomorrow,
Well,
but we had Stacy working on the grant, so we kind of waited.
I think we need to have a meeting sometime before the next council meeting. If you could maybe set that up, Stacy.
Okay.
We need to put on the agenda recommendation, they're having a training class that has to do with our ad hoc committee stuff, funding and stuff in Billings.
Billings.
Is that correct? We'd actually like permission to send Stacy to it. So,
Well, we'll have Stacy call the three, yeah,
Figure out what day there's not another meeting.
and what date yet.
yeah, I don't know,
And we'll get it out probably tomorrow.
that'll work.
Okay,
That's all.
straight alley, Mr. Nye.
No meeting, no report.
Water and sewer, Mr. Hand.
Question, when are we next scheduled?
For,
Street number?
it'll be the next, first Monday of the month.
March 2nd.
So.
March 2nd.
Yeah, 2nd. I'll get it out next week, the agenda. Mr. Hand.
Okay, Water and Sewer Committee, we ask your approval of the February 11th meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved by Russ, seconded by Raymond. Discussion.
Call for the question.
Question has been called for to approve the February 11th, 2020 meeting minutes of the Water and Sewer Committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Take as unanimous.
We have two action items. The first is to approve the recommendation to adjust Patty Care's sewer average. She had a pipe break in her building down the street here, and it made an unusual amount of water flow appearance on her bill, which would influence her sewer rate. So we dialed that back. At least that's our proposal, to dial it back to more reasonable level for her.
Move to approve.
Second.
Question.
And Russ made the motion, Diane seconded. Now, discussion.
Question. Since that was an item on the meeting agenda, but due to the mayor, because of time considerations, stopping the meeting, I guess, before that item was discussed in the committee, isn't it premature for us to move to approve the adjustment before it's been heard in the committee?
It's been heard in the
If
committee.
that's our recommendation.
Number one.
When was it heard in the committee? If
It was heard last Tuesday.
February 11th.
Yeah, number one.
Okay, February 11th, I don't see it.
Number one.
Number one.
9A, sub-item 1, numeral 1.
Okay, my mistake, excuse me.
He said, I don't tell the committee to do really anything.
Sometimes I wish.
If I started doing that, I'd get in trouble.
Call for the question.
Question's been called for to approve the recommendation to adjust Patty Care's sewer average. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. I take that as unanimous.
The second thing is more just to put it in the record that we looked at what Justin Hildreth pulls off of the Rattlesnake water line. He is actually the last tease on the water line, and according to court documents we're able to turn up, he does have right to 559,000 gallons of cumulative use before any fee for water is incurred. Basically, years ago, the city made a deal with the landowners. You can go through our land, we give you free water. Yeah, this is X number of gallons of water, and happens to be what those, actually it's 3 taps would be able to get. So we just looked at that, and as a result of the court documents and such that were presented, we approved that they take it either all out of one or a combination of them, but not to exceed that in totality, without being charged.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved by Russ, seconded by Dan. Discussion.
It was interesting reading Judge Davis's terse 1997 order.
Yeah, one of the pages there got truncated. The mayor had the full text on his, but none of the committee members did. So that made it a little interesting too. Sometimes photocopy machines do strange things, we decided.
packet here had them all.
Well, does it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I didn't review it.
We fixed the printing.
Ah, very good.
Call for the question.
Question, the council will approve the recommendation for Justice Hildreth, the current owner, to have the 559,000 gallons cumulative usage of free water per year for both his meters. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. I take that as unanimous.
I would like to direct the council's attention to item number 3 on there. This is the main sewer line. If it happens to plug, we have an emergency situation. So we're in the process of trying to get it lined out so we can do it on our time rather than Mother Nature's time to repair the line. We have a vague idea of where it's at with the equipment that we have at our disposal, and we're looking forward to hopefully getting it coordinated with the state of Montana to close that lane of the highway and dig that up with a contractor and do it. In the packet, there's notes for pumps and such. That would be the responsibility of the contractor to bring with him. In this case, if it becomes an emergency and the city has to do it, that's what we're looking at for pumps and a quick trip to Helen to pick them up. So it'll be an expensive adventure to fix it, to say the least. But we're trying to stay on top of it and try to keep the lines flowing.
So the dry pump, the ramps and all of that would be just rented out of, would just be rented?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
that's not something that we keep on hand. That completes my report.
Thank you. Okay, public comment on items of significant public interest not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of the city.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to point out that as a newly elected officer of the Main Street Group, that the state convention will be truly held October 18th, 19th, and 20th, downtown Dillon, Montana.
And we're getting it, the city is volunteering to drive a bus around for them. We have 2 buses, so we'll get a driver when they need it. We're not donating it full time,
Really?
but we will drive them around town with our secondary bus. So, but this will be good, I think. The plan is to go around, getting them downtown, getting them walking around, seeing the whole town of Dillon. I think it's good advertisement here to have it. Even though this is gonna be a lot of work, it's still gonna be good for the city, I think, so. Thank you. I did miss this meeting, I'll go make the next one. Oh.
Lucky you weren't appointed chair.
Oh, boy.
Move for adjournment.
Been moved by Don, seconded by Rich. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.